Hi, I'm Anna Loza. I'm here with Mandi Palmer. Thank you, Mandi, for being here.
Thank you, Anna, for inviting me. I'm excited.
Awesome. So tell me a little bit about where you're at, what you're doing, what are you up to?
I'm a certified health and wellness coach,
Mm.
and I help men and women with chronic illness and health challenges to find vibrant health with the tools of whole food, fitness, stress resilience, natural and holistic living, the medical medium protocol, and good old fashioned giving a damn.
Yeah, that's a good last ingredient.
And yeah, I've been doing this for a little over a year, and yeah, I've always kind of been in the health and wellness field. I got a degree in food science and human nutrition, and my husband and I ran a CrossFit gym for almost 8 years, and I also did massage therapy during that time. And so, in this previous career, I worked with helping people's physical imbalances by combining fitness and corrective exercise and massage therapy. And now I've moved into a little bit more of all around holistic health, and I'm really loving it.
That's so fantastic. So what made you have this focus on chronic illness?
Good question. That was where everything started for me. When I wasn't a sick kid, but I did get stomach aches often, and I had cystic acne throughout. I had cystic acne for a long time. It started really young at the age of 9, and it didn't go away until I was maybe 21. And in college, my first year of college, I because of that cystic acne, I went on Accutane. So if you're familiar with Accutane, it's a very, especially back then. I'm 34 now, so this was a long time ago when Accutane first came out. It's a very aggressive drug, and it was not a fun 9 months that I was on it. And that was really the start of a lot of my chronic illness. I started getting a lot of digestive upset. I was really inflamed and bloated in the gut, and it was really hard to eat anything. I lost a lot of weight, and I was diagnosed with IBS. And at this time, I didn't really know anything about natural or holistic medicine. And so when I went to the doctor, they put me on Prilosec. Yeah. I don't even think they knew that much about IBS then. I'm not sure. So that kind of set me off to researching for myself, trying to figure out what I can do. And so I got into nutrition. I decided that's what I wanted to major in. And to do that, I had to switch colleges, which brought me to Gainesville. And I ended up living in Gainesville for about 11 years. And after college, after I graduated with my degree in nutrition from the University of Florida, I went to massage school 5 days later. I didn't give myself a lot of time in between. And I ended up not pursuing dietetics as a career because afterward you have to get an internship and everything. I didn't want to do that. And then at that time, I also met my husband, and we ended up, after dating for maybe 5 or 6 months, we ended up working together. He was opening up a CrossFit gym. And so he was a massage therapist too. So we both had that skill, and so we kind of brought like a softer side, a more nurturing side to CrossFit, and it was very new back then. This was when nobody had heard of it, and we were always trying to tell people exactly what it was. And so I spent a big part of my career. That was, right after college and up until this point, 2 years ago anyway. That's what I did for 8 years, and it was awesome. And, my health continued to get worse throughout this entire time. Right at the beginning, right when I was graduating, I remember starting to develop multiple chemical sensitivity. And I didn't know what it was at the time, but I would be exposed to a chemical or something of that sort, and I would have a physical reaction. I'd be ill, and I would get migraines. And let's see what else developed. A few years later, and this was during the CrossFit time too, and CrossFit is very intense. And I know it's very popular. Functional fitness is awesome. But for someone like me who had started to experience chronic symptoms related to chronic illness, it was not good. I developed a very severe vertigo. And this is probably the most traumatic that I've been through. And, you know, a lot of people think, oh, vertigo, dizziness. This was not just dizziness. I had at least 3 spells that were very severe where I was bedridden for 7 to 10 days. And then it took another few days to actually recover and get back to work. I couldn't open my eyes. I couldn't turn my head. So, you know, during this time, my husband helped me. You know, I could barely eat anything. The nausea, just not even looking around and seeing everything move, the nausea was just so intense. And so that was the worst to date that I had been through. And things didn't get better. You know, I started, because I was doing massage therapy, I started getting into natural medicine. I was seeing a chiropractor regularly. I was seeing an acupuncturist regularly, an acupuncturist and a doctor of Chinese medicine, 2 separate people. And I even, when I moved here, I even started seeing another natural doctor. And nobody, you know, they helped a little bit. You know, if I had the chiropractor helped my aches and pains, or, you know, if I did have a migraine, I could go to my doctor of Chinese medicine and she would fix it. Or I could go get an acupuncture session and they would essentially put a Band-Aid on it and make it go away. But everything still persisted. My digestion was still not very good. And I was eating paleo throughout all this. This was in college. I kind of went vegetarian for a while, noticing that dairy was one of my big IBS triggers. And then during the CrossFit phase of my life, I was eating paleo because those are, you know, that's kind of what CrossFit pushes. And I loved it. And everyone in the gym and all my clients got great results eating that way, with weight loss and leaning out. But I was still not healthy. And everything just could have been better. I couldn't detox either. So I was very, very toxic and didn't know why. I would be exposed to something and be sick, or I would get something called cupping, and that made me very ill. So my body just wasn't, I knew that there was something more going on. And I had some blood tests and found that I had some retained viruses, which is kind of a different concept, that you can have these antibodies in your body from different viruses. And Epstein-Barr virus is one of them. And that can actually wreak a lot of havoc in your body, and you not even really know it because you're not presenting with a regular flu-like symptom. And so Epstein-Barr starts in the monophase, and then it can hide in your body, such as your liver, which is probably one of the reasons why I wasn't able to really detox, because that was burdening my liver. So about a year ago, over a year ago, the beginning of last year, I read the book by Anthony William, Medical Medium, Secrets of Chronic Illness and How to Finally Heal. Have you heard of that? Have you ever familiar with it? And it completely resonated with me. At all the symptoms that I had been experiencing, I have tinnitus also. There's I can't ever remember all of my symptoms and conditions. It just completely resonated with me because it described everything that I had been going through, and it gave me an answer why. And so I changed my diet from, I basically went whole foods, plant-based, without any grains, actually. And even after a few months of switching to mostly just fruits and vegetables, I even stopped eating beans and legumes. So some think that I have a very limited diet right now, but it's completely helped me heal. I don't get migraines. Oh, insomnia was one of my big ones too. I had the worst insomnia. And so I sleep through the night now. It's absolutely amazing. That is a torture. Insomnia is just a torture. My MCS is better, my chemical sensitivity. Did I say my migraines? I don't get migraines anymore. So I'm able to, I had these, and vertigo wasn't something that was in my life a lot. So I can't, I just had those 3 big spells. So I haven't had vertigo since, but that doesn't mean that it's completely gone. So I've just had this past year, and even before, so I didn't really talk about the transition that my husband and I went through. When after it was about 7.5 years that we were running the gym, and we were exhausted, we were tired. It's a very personal business, and we had decided that it was time to move on. So we sold it, and we moved from Gainesville, Florida to Asheville, North Carolina. And this has been an amazing place. So I've been able to, I was very stressed out. And even then I was doing Qigong also. That was one of my healing tools that I still use, that I still regard as amazing for any condition. And so I use that often to help manage my stress, because I was very stressed out. And so once we moved up here, I was able to relax, let go inward a little bit more, experience the magic of the mountains up here. And, Gainesville was a special place too. And here, I would just describe it as more special, more healing. And I make a lot more time for going out on hikes in nature now. And I no longer do intense exercise. It just doesn't agree with my body. It was making me way too tired back then. That was another thing that I had, was chronic fatigue, and some almost deep neurological fatigue, where I had moments where lifting up my leg or lifting up my arm was just exhausting. And I'm sure many people can relate to having that type of fatigue. And so up here, I have just have this complete lifestyle life change. And even my career is different. I don't meet people in person necessarily. I can, and I have, but I do. It's so much easier doing it this way, virtually, and so I don't have that stress of the business side of having to pay for brick and mortar. So that was nice to get rid of. And yeah, just focusing on health coaching, and really, instead of, I loved helping people find balance in their bodies. And I can still do that to this day, although I don't have a massage license up here in North Carolina. So I don't put my hands on people anymore. But I love being able to have someone come to me saying that they're going through something similar that I went through, some type of chronic illness. They're so tired, they don't know why, or they're missing work because of all these migraines. And being able to use the tools that I mentioned in the beginning to help them navigate that and overcome that. It's very, very rewarding to experience and see and be a part of.
That's so fantastic. With the medical medium protocol, one of my favorite messages that I've seen is that, like, the medical medium work, the work that Anthony Williams does, is that the body is your partner in healing, that the body wants to heal, and like coming back to trusting it, because with chronic illness, and with any illness, it could just be such, like, you feel let down by the body and you don't know why, and it's like this struggle of, we got to fight this disease, versus listening to the body and working in tandem with it. And something that's so incredible, the symptoms that you let go of, that you've transcended, that's miraculous. And the fact that you're here speaking with me right now, looking so vibrant and healthy and joyful, that's incredible.
Yeah, I love that message too, and a lot of people can feel that when they get a diagnosis. The diagnosis, the way that some physicians word it, especially in the conventional side, can be, and I have a terrible story to tell about this, but it can feel so like, oh, it's the end and there's nothing you can do. They don't give you hope. They tell, I've heard stories where cancer patients are told that there's nothing they can do. Just go ahead and eat cake and eat pizza. And that's not true. There's a lot that they can do aside from getting the conventional treatments. And, of course, there's so many people that heal without getting chemo and radiation. But sometimes people feel it's necessary, and that's okay too. The body is your partner, and it will work through it with you.
Mm-hmm. What's your story? You mentioned that. I'm curious now.
Oh, the story that I mentioned. Yeah, there was a woman, she got a diagnosis of ALS. And her doctor, she was probably about 78, so, not super old, but up there. And her doctor told her, there's nothing you can do. That diet's not going to help your ALS. And at the time, I was in communication with her natural doctor, and me and the natural doctor know that there's a lot she can do with diet, but she heard her physician, and people really revere that white coat, and that's great because they do know what they're doing. Physicians are amazing, but when they take away someone's hope, that is not okay to me. Don't leave a patient feeling like that there's nothing they can do. Don't leave them powerless, because they should be empowered at that time in their life. Yeah.
And it almost like that's another ingredient to successful healing, that drive and that knowing that, okay, well, maybe I'll try this and maybe I'll try that, and I got to keep going because there is something. And just like still that desire for life. And I think that's what a lot of the medical medium journey gives people, is that like, whoa, like there is something, there is some sort of understanding, there's a way through this. And yeah, I agree with you that to take away hope is definitely, in my books, not on the same page as healing.
It's not. Those are two very different things. Yeah, you're sending the person down a completely different path when you tell them that there's nothing they can do, because there is a lot that they can do, and there's a lot that their body's willing to do.
So have you seen, with your clients that you have now for chronic illness, have you seen some trajectories where a person has had that hope, taken the pieces that they can do, and walked forward through their journey?
Yes, for sure. Part of the empowerment that Anthony Williams' message provides people is, and everything from him, those of people that out there that aren't familiar with his work, he hears a spirit called the Spirit of Most High, the Spirit of Compassion, that gives him this information, and he hears it like you and I hear each other talking from the ear. It's not in the head or anything that he hears. And his message is that science hasn't discovered some of these things yet. And, unfortunately, science goes where the money goes. And it's not always where it needs to go. For one, EBV, Epstein-Barr virus, can be a cause of many of these things. And this is kind of what he shares. And I know it's very controversial. But Epstein-Barr virus can cause the vertigo like I had. It can even be the cause of, it's also, he calls it the cause of fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue syndrome, and even cancer in combination with certain environmental toxins. And, well, now I don't remember where I was going with this. But, well, once you identify that true cause, and he even says the autoimmune disease is not, it's not the body attacking itself, that it's the pathogens that the body is attacking, and they're just, I guess the lab tests aren't really understanding exactly the antibodies that are being produced. And so I think for a lot of people, when they understand that, okay, it's a foreign pathogen and I can kill it, I know what to do. That gives people their power back, especially with autoimmune disease. And when you have that power back, when you know the cause and you start to make changes, meaning that you have the control of it. A lot of these illnesses, people feel like that they don't have control over what their body's doing. And when you start to realize that you do have some control, that's when you can reclaim back that feeling of that what you were talking about, that sense of that drive to not just survive but thrive.
Mm-hmm.
And so many people have lost that. There's so much chronic illness out there. It's amazing. And women get it more often than men. And I think sometimes it's more difficult for men to admit it, that they have something going on, that maybe they need to see a doctor. Not all cases. I do work with a lot of men actually that are wonderful and very open about acknowledging that they have stuff going on. But there's so much of it out there, and I love the medical medium protocol for that, because it gives people their power back.
Mm-hmm. So you've seen people's lives transform with the work that you're doing.
Absolutely. Especially I've had some with chronic fatigue syndrome clients, and adrenal fatigue, which are sometimes difficult to decipher which one it is. And I'm not an expert in diagnosis. The clients come to me after they've been diagnosed. And, one of the things that helps with adrenal fatigue is eating every 90 minutes to 2 hours, and not just eating anything, but eating specifically a combination of glucose, sodium, and potassium from just fruits and vegetables. And that was one of my things too, eating paleo. I would have eggs in the morning, and then I'd have a salad with chicken at lunch, and then I'd have some type of snack during the day made of like nuts and fruit, and then for dinner I'd have meat and vegetables again. So I really thought it was the healthiest thing I could be doing. And but I still had all my symptoms, and I still had that fatigue. I mean, I would have to take a nap. We lived really close to our business, and so I would go home and I would take a nap in the afternoon. I'd have coffee in the morning. I'd have coffee when I wake up. I don't drink coffee anymore, and I don't have a lack of energy. That was one of my loves. That was the very last thing that I gave up. I gave up chocolate. I gave up wine, no problem. The meat was super easy for me to give up, but the coffee, I slowly titrated down and slowly tried to find things to give up. But I hadn't realized how much the coffee was impacting my health, because I really didn't see coffee as something that was hurting me, and it really, really was. So the connection between coffee and the adrenal fatigue is that coffee provides us with a lot of energy, and we love it. We feel so good on it. And the reason we do is because, and this is what Anthony Williams says. This is his teaching, that it makes our adrenals go into overdrive. And so adrenals going into overdrive is the cause of adrenal fatigue. They get too burnt out. So then not eating for 3-4 hours, which a lot of us do. It's very common to do that. It is also very stressful on the adrenals. And so you have this combination of coffee and not eating for a few hours, not providing your body with the glucose and mineral salts that it needs. Things are gonna happen that aren't good. Fatigue is gonna set in, and who knows what else. But so that was one of the things that I also changed. So it wasn't what I was eating, it was how I was eating. And so it wasn't just me. I've seen this in some of my clients as well, that once they make that switch to supplying their body with the right nutrients every 90 minutes to 2 hours, the fatigue slowly goes away and the energy starts to come back. And when you have that energy come back, there's so much more that you can do, that anyone who has gone through this can do. And I've seen that happen, and it's really remarkable. Because when you get the energy back, your what's the word? Not zest, but your drive comes back. Your focus can come back. Because sometimes people have brain fog, and that's a lot of times one of the symptoms of having EBV affect your body is brain fog. And that all comes back. It can all come back.
Fantastic. It just, so what would you say to someone who's listening to this and it's like, it's just too hard to give up all these things? And do you ever have clients like that?
Oh, yeah.
This and that? Like, what's your protocol for that?
It sounds so overwhelming too. What? Yeah. no more of this, no more of that, just fruits and vegetables. And it's not necessarily that. So, I started slow. Actually, the best thing you can do is start slow. Start by changing one thing. And the first thing I changed was I got rid of eggs for breakfast. I changed that at the moment for just 2 months until I was ready to do fruit or a fruit smoothie. I did chia seed pudding because it was plant-based. I was trying to cut back on the meat. And what I discovered, the reason I gave up meat completely was because I just found I had better digestion. I've always had issues with my gut, and I found that when I gave it up, my bowel movements increased. I was going to the bathroom easier. And a lot of people that do medical medium, he tells people just decrease your fat by 50%, decrease your fat by 25%, whatever it is. And because that will give your liver a chance to heal, your blood to thin out, and your body be able to get rid of toxins a lot easier. And so that was the first thing that I changed. Then, and you start with, I always recommend people start with the thing that's easiest for them to change. Then get that into a habit. Maybe it'll take 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks. Make it a habit. Get used to it. Then pick the next thing that's going to be easiest for you. I think for me that was, I don't remember anymore. It might have been giving up meat, although I think I did that right away. I think I did that simultaneously. I think that was just the first thing I did. What was it? Yeah, whatever would be easiest next. Get used to that. Get it into your routine. And it's not, when you're getting rid of things, another really great thing to do is to know what to replace it with. So for me, like I just made a bigger salad for lunch. And then I made sure that I was eating fruit often enough during the day. And then for dinner, I still, to this day, I still just have a cooked, like a half cooked, half raw dinner. And like I said before, the coffee was the last thing that I gave up. And I titrated it down, meaning, so I would have, I started with I would drink a lot of coffee, like over 16 ounces of coffee in the morning. And so I started to decrease it. I said, okay, I have this little cup. I'm going to use this little cup. And then I would make like a half calf. And I would get used to that. And then finally I got down to just decaf. And this is also so you don't get those horrible caffeine headaches, And so then that became green tea, or maybe it was black tea. I think I went black tea for a few days and then green tea. And then I went to herbal tea, and I had no problem because I still had that habit of having that warm beverage after breakfast. But at times, like there were times that I missed it. So I would say, okay, on Sunday, I'm going to allow myself a cup of coffee. And then after just doing that for a few weeks, maybe a couple months, I didn't want it anymore. And so because I think my body just started to get nourished with the right nutrients, and I didn't crave it anymore. And now when I smell it, I don't even want it. It just doesn't even smell good to me. So yeah, when I get clients that say, this is overwhelming, I can't give all this up, that's where coaching comes in, because that's when I work on a really personal level, and I find, okay, let's work here. Let's figure out what's going to be easiest first. And then if they come back the next week and they say, oh, I didn't do it. Okay, well, let's explore why. And that's where coaching comes in. And that's where coaching sometimes can get into these places that you never thought that you had issues with, maybe it was, a traumatic event that happened, and that's why you have to have sweets after a meal, and that's why you crave a certain food. And like sometimes people, like when people are craving a snack, they'll go for like the same type of thing. They'll go for something sweet or something salty, and sometimes their body needs glucose, and that's why they go for something sweet, and sometimes their body needs mineral salt, and that's why they go for something salty. So I do try to get people to replace those foods and understand what their body's really asking for and what it needs. But also sometimes those things can be attached to an emotional event. Like it can be a happy time in their life where they came home from school and their mom always had cookies baked for them. And so in the afternoons now they want their coffee or their tea with a cookie. And that just brings them so much satisfaction and joy, and just makes them feel so comforted. And so identifying those reasons why, once you know a reason why something's going on with you, that's all you need right there to get over that hump once something is identified. So that's where some deeper coaching comes in, and people's issues with food. But yeah, start slow.
Yeah.
Change one thing at a time.
It's so valuable to have that coaching, like you're saying. In my practice, I teach people EFT tapping. And, it's something that one can learn on their own. Just like, okay, we can pick up a book about diet or a book by Anthony Williams, and we can do it on our own. And I love what you said, how like with coaching, it's those places that you wouldn't really see, and to find that way to make something work. Because on our own, we could just be like, well, I just won't touch that. Like, I don't feel really good over there, so I just won't. But having that reflection, like there's no excuses, there's no way to get out of it. Like we're going all the way. And it sounds like you're super loving and supportive and compassionate with your clients. So just to have that support, some of us may not have even received that as we were growing up into adulthood. And to be met like that by a person on the journey toward releasing trauma and stepping into health, that's invaluable.
Yes. You bring up a great point, because sometimes we don't allow ourselves that space to feel, that space to experience and acknowledge those feelings that are going on. Or even sometimes with illness, people feel really guilty about it because they can't be there for their families. And so they're not really allowing themselves, because of that guilt and shame, they're not allowing themselves to have the space, or give themselves the space to discover more healing for themselves. And so practitioners like you and I, there's just something so powerful about having that other person sit in front of you, creating that space, that loving space for them to just speak about whatever they want to speak about. And that's a tool that I like to use sometimes. It's just the silence. And it's just allow them to keep talking and see what comes up, because that's when, because people will say, like, almost keep it at not superficial, but this level here, this is very superficial. Okay, I'm willing to go here. But if you allow them to just keep talking, they'll want to talk, and okay, I know what else I need to say here, and they'll go down to that deeper level where that issue really lies. And they may not be comfortable doing it at first. And that's actually really common. The more the relationship develops between a coach and a client, the deeper that the client is usually willing to go. And it's that deep level that the healing can really happen. And so, yeah, I love that idea of being able to open up the space for that deeper healing, no matter what it is.
Yeah. Just being heard, just being listened to, feeling like there's time for you, because so many people give that time. They're so good at giving that time to somebody else and making sure the conversation's balanced, or more for you than for me.
Yeah.
And just to receive.
Yeah, especially when talking with a friend, and friendships are wonderful for that. But sometimes, like you said, it's difficult to, when you're working when the client is in that space, it's their time to talk about whatever they want, and not have to worry about any reciprocation happening, and really allow them to get into those issues and help and find their solutions. And with using the tools of coaching questions and coaching prompts, or prompting questions, and really getting them to think about things. Okay, I don't need to answer right away. Let me think about this. Why is that true for me? Why do I do that? Why do I not do that? And so, yeah.
What's the time scope that you have clients for usually? Is it a couple of weeks? Do you work with people for a year? What does it look like?
It starts out at 3 months, and it usually grows from there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it takes a lot of time. And I have had very short sessions where I'll allow people to buy just 1 or 2 sessions, and where it'll be like more of consulting versus coaching, like just getting information, which is okay too. Sometimes people just need information and they're very self-reliant and have really good self-regulation, and they are comfortable doing things like that on their own and not really needing the extra push or support. Or maybe what they need is just the food and the fitness part of it, and they don't really need the deeper stuff. Or they're just not aware that they need the deeper stuff.
Yeah.
Sometimes they come back when they realize that they need the deeper stuff. Yeah.
Awesome. So is your husband involved with this in any way now? How has that synergy been?
Oh, that's funny that you asked that. We, because we used to run the business together, right?
Mm-hmm.
We were great together. It was, you know, when you own a business, when you're an entrepreneur, business is 24/7, and business is personal. A lot of people say it's not. Well, maybe it's not if you just have a 9-to-5 job, but when you are your business, like I am, and like we were with the gym, things are personal. And so, you know, we were really great together running that. And, you know, he was more the leader. And so I like now that I'm on my own, he's not helping me. You know, he'll read my blog posts before they go out. I just want to make sure that I'm not sounding arrogant or everything makes perfect sense. So he helps me with that, but he's doing commercial real estate now. So he's not even in the health field anymore. He's completely doing something different. And it's funny, like he's gone during the day a lot more now, and I work from home, so I'm home all the time, and yeah, so I miss him during the day when he's gone. There's definitely times where I'm like, okay, you need to leave because I need to get some work done. And then he'll be gone for a half a day, and he comes back for lunch. And but if he's gone like all day and doesn't come back for lunch, I'm like, okay, I'm starting to get a little lonely. I really want him to come home. So it's been different getting used to not being with each other every second of the day.
Mm. Is he doing any of the dietary and like the medical medium protocols with you?
Not a little bit. He's had gallbladder issues in the past, so decreasing his fat has been a priority. So he also went from not eating eggs and cutting down his meat to once a day, because he really loves meat. And he was someone when I first started, the first couple months that I started doing this, he was like, oh my gosh, I can't give up meat. And we went out to a vegan restaurant with some friends. And they're very open-minded, and so Aaron's like, oh man, I don't know what I'm gonna get in one meal without meat. What am I gonna do? And so it was big for him to change that, but he got used to it. Once he learned that, I think he was afraid that he would get hungry without eating meat in a meal, and so I helped him figure out what his breakfast could be, what his lunch could be, or what his dinner could be. And it's not like he has meat for dinner. He'll switch it between lunch and dinner. So he still likes it once a day, but he's decreased his fat a lot, which is only going to help his gallbladder in the long run. Because he's had some minor gallbladder attacks before, and we don't want those to turn into anything severe. So I can be a bit of the food police. I will admit that. And with him, you know, with clients, you can't say, don't eat that. You know, that's not good for you. That's not productive for people. But when it's a spouse or family member, you know, don't eat that. You know, you just had all of this, and you're going to eat that too. That's not going to be good for you. And I only say that because I know it's not going to make him feel good when he overeats on something, which he tends to do sometimes. He'll eat a really big meal, and then he'll have a dessert, and it'll just be too much for him, and he'll be falling asleep, and his stomach will be all bloated. And so it comes from love when I say it to him, but I've had to learn to just say it like I would a client. You know, how is that going to make you feel afterward if you eat that? And so he's made some really great changes, and he feels great from it. You know, we never used to do smoothies, and now we do smoothies all the time. And I think, and his energy's been great, my energy's been great, and you know, there's more that he could do. He still likes to eat out a lot, and it's really difficult to do eating out because canola oil is a terrible food for us. What Anthony Williams shares about it is that it's corrosive to the whole body, the vascular system, the organs, and it can also feed viruses, which is also a concept that science hasn't really discovered yet, that viruses eat heavy metals and chemicals. And the viruses, once they consume it, they turn it into, once they excrete it, it turns into an even more potent toxin, and can be a dermatoxin or a neurotoxin, and which can cause things like vertigo, tinnitus, neurological symptoms. I don't remember where I was going with that, but with with not eating, so with eating foods, that's right, with eating foods that feed those things, it's very difficult not to do, and that's why I gave up eggs. Eggs is one of the things, they use eggs to grow bacteria in labs. They use it to proliferate with them, and so knowing that, just imagine you eat that, what is it doing to your body? And it's funny because eggs are such a popular food now. They're known to be such a healthy food, and so many people are eating them and possibly feeding their viruses and making their conditions worse. So that was one of the things that he's actually given up and not eaten again, which is amazing. He'll have some plant-based meals, but yeah, I think he's definitely eating out, getting some canola oil, because they use canola oil everywhere. It's such a cheap oil.
Yeah. Wow, this is amazing, Andy, because so many people, just in my experience, I've heard comments like, well, I don't know if I can really choose my diet to the extent that I want to choose it because, oh, my partner isn't doing it, or what would my family think? How would I go to family dinner? So, I mean, that's kind of a challenge to oneself of just maintaining your own boundaries and what's most important to you first and foremost. So it just sounds like, you're navigating that in your personal life, and compassionately conversing with that about your husband.
Oh, that is huge. People that have, I've always been on that side though of, wanting to bring my own food to holiday and family gatherings, and being the picky one eating out and having to ask a lot of questions, and yeah, trying to like go out to dinner with friends, and that's difficult for me. I just own it. That's all I can do, because I know that I'm going to feel so much better eating the way that I'm comfortable eating. I'm not going to get a stomach upset, and like you said, boundaries. It really is a boundaries, and there's a very social thing to food, and there a lot of that. It's tied together very, very tightly. Even now I'm still, because I was in the paleo world, and keto is so popular now, and everyone who has those belief systems around food, vegan or paleo, keto, they feel very strongly about it, and so sometimes people can feel like, because I'm eating this way now, I'm eating mostly just fruits and vegetables, that somehow that's offensive to them eating the way that they eat. And that's not so. It's just, we need to do what's right for each of us individually, and we need to accept that other people are doing what they feel is right for them, even if they're not trying to eat a certain way for their health, even if they just want to eat whatever they want, they're doing what they want to do. And sometimes, that there can be clashes there, and especially socially, it's interesting. And now my family is used to it. My husband he's always been accepting of whatever. He just wants me to be happy and healthy and thrive. And so when he saw me being happy and healthy and thriving on this, he's like, okay, maybe I'll make that. I'll have a fruit for a snack instead of a nut bar. And so it was that where he started making changes. It wasn't me pushing them on him. And so that can be a deterrent for people. Certainly, you bring up a great point. That can definitely be a deterrent, because it is important for people to go out with their friends and be able to socialize and not have food be an awkward barrier to that socializing. So, my advice to people in that position would just be get to a place where they're comfortable with themselves, having the confidence that they're doing what's right for their own health, that they don't need anyone else's opinions or approval in order to do what's right for them. You just gotta, and for me, I've just been able to brush all that off, what people think. I think that's a strength. It's a really important skill, and I say that's a skill because it took me a while to get here. I did used to think what people would think about it, and and if I kept feeling that, even if it wasn't true, that comes from within too. It doesn't necessarily come from other people. It comes from you. It comes from within. So that's something that you just have to work through on yourself with something like EFT and tapping.
Yeah.
Can definitely help with that.
For sure. Mandi, it sounds like you're bringing such a compassionate approach to your clients, and you have so many tools and so much personal experience as well with the chronic illness and the thriving health journey. So we're going to link to your work in the bottom of this interview, and people can find you. And yeah, I'm excited for all the people that you support in thriving and feeling good. Like we all deserve health, and that's what our body helps us to do anyway. So just celebrate it.
Awesome. Thank you so much for doing this and allowing me to share all this with you and the world.
You're so welcome. Thank you so much for sharing it.